Back in a simpler day, probably after the morning chores were done, it's easy to imagine your grandparents sitting at the breakfast table, sipping a cup of coffee, gazing out over the field that represented their life's work, and wondering out loud whether they might be able to swing that extra 40 acres. They already had the help, the know-how, the equipment, and the passion. Now, all that was standing between them and the back 40 was a little faith and a few bucks from the bank. That's what everybody around here called it back then, the bank. Officially, it was Union Bank and Trust Company, UB&T. But since it had long been the only bank in town, the bank was plenty descriptive. Everybody knew what you meant. Of course, it wasn't long after that the big banks started popping up like bread in a 4-slice toaster. And they'd talk about how they understood your needs, even though you'd never met. And how they'd make your dreams come true with this loan and that, without ever crawling inside those dreams. And how they could give you a better deal than the one you'd get at the bank, neglecting to mention some of the fine print that suggested otherwise. And your grandparents probably looked at each other and said, "Who are these out-of-towners who think they know us?" And they'd shrug and they'd laugh, and it was a pretty easy decision when they said they'd stick with UB&T. Thank you very much. And that simple show of faith, a hometown loyalty repeated over and over, has never been lost on Union Bank and Trust Company. Where another bank might say, "It's because of us that you have that family farm," UB&T knows it's because of you that you have that family farm. And because of you that we're still here to return that show of faith to your family, your children, your grandchildren. Maybe that's the union part in Union Bank and Trust Company. We didn't just play an important role in your history played an important role in ours. We stuck by each other like folks in strong communities do. Now, none of that is reason enough to get out of bed in the morning, march down to your bank, close your accounts, and switch it all over to UB&T. But maybe the reason we have a future together is that we have a history together. Somewhere in the last 5 generations, we are related, if nothing else, by a common purpose. That history is one of promises and handshakes, trust and accountability, big work and little victories. Before credit scores and collateral guidelines and mile-long applications mucked everything up. The simpler time that alongside all the advances in technologies in banking is in some ways still frozen in time at Union Bank and Trust Company. And so despite all the modern change we've embraced, tomorrow looks a little something like yesterday at UB&T, because we think your grandparents would have liked it that way. You and UB&T, still growing together.